We're excited to be here today to talk about the 2023 compensation plan. We've listened to many different ideas over the past 12 months, and oftentimes we knew that the ideas we would be considering would have a huge impact on our organization. They would also make a huge impact to the morale of our employees. For 2 years, we have steadily watched the evolution of our new workplace. We are witnessing the Great Recession and the overall impact of COVID and inflation has had on our workforce. All of us in this room have noticed the dramatic effects that it has taken on our employees. Over the past decade, we have failed to be progressive in our compensation plan. We range well with overall benefits, however, wages lag behind. Last week, you heard Jeremy Hill talk about inflation in our country, and he specifically addressed how hard the Midwest was hit, just over 13%, while the national average just over 7%. By these unprecedented numbers, and by all means, they have taken a toll on our direct workforce. Employees now have a choice in better pay, and a choice in a different work environment. 2 years ago, when we were working on our strategic plans, we very carefully wrote down the words flexible work environment. At that time, we had no idea what we would be in store for and how flexible we would need to be. But bring that same thought process to today. We again want to explore different ideas of how to shape our work environment. How can we take care of employees that are with us now, and what can we do to become a more attractive employer? Several of the items we present today, we will take time to pause after each section to discuss the will of the Commission moving forward. We're eager to hear your insights and thoughts on the full employee compensation package and what options we have to discuss. Last year, when we met in the upcoming budget, you ultimately decided to make a huge impact on our workforce. We reclassified many positions that resulted in a significant wage adjustment to many of our employees. We want to continue that momentum into 2023. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, we have plenty of time to discuss each one of these topics that I will present today. And more importantly, today's goal is to understand the direction of the Commission and which area they want to go regarding employee compensation and other environmental benefits. So to start us off, there are 3 questions, and I'm going to come back to these 3 questions several times during the presentation. First, what will we do to retain and motivate our workforce? Second, what will we do to attract new employees to our organization? And finally, what can we do to address these hard economic times, outside competition, and how will all of our decisions allow us to appropriately fund compensation in 2023? Today's agenda, we're going to talk about several different items. We've broken them into 3 different components, the first being benefits, and we'll talk about programs such as parental leave, sick, vacation, and PTO, and life insurance. For pay components, we'll talk about items such as observed holidays and holiday pay, weekend shift and shift pay, longevity, bilingual pay, and referral bonuses, and I'll give you an update on the sign-on bonus as well. And finally, for compensation, you'll hear a little bit about the fire and the EMS step plan. Also included in that is the DA, and just overall organizational compensation. So we have a lot to get over, and again, I emphasize we'll have some time to pause to talk about each of these items. First on the list is parental leave. One of the things we began looking at was what are other organizations doing that we are not doing? And this is the highlights of the state of Kansas plan. It allows for parents to focus on new family members without the concern of financial impact of being away from work. So they offer a paid parental leave program. They use this as a recruitment and a retention tool, and it's for benefit employees for the birth, adoption, or placement of foster children. In the state's proposal, the primary caregiver receives 8 paid weeks of leave, and the secondary caregiver 4 weeks of paid leave. Now again, this was one thing that our outside competition is doing that we are not doing. Our employees are eligible, again, if they work enough hours for FML, but there's no guaranteed of a paid leave status. And so this is our first area that we'll stop and pause. And again, we're not asking you to give us direction if you like the state's plan, but we want to know if you would like us to pursue a further study into a parental leave type program. And with that, I would like to open that up to the commission. Chairman, if you would like to.
Do any of the commissioners have anything they'd like to say on this subject?
So you're asking for us if we'd like for you to pursue this plan?
Yes.
My answer would be I would like for you to pursue this plan.
I agree, and I apologize. I was getting a text about the technical difficulties, so I might have missed it. But what did you, if you said it, what do we offer now compared to this plan? What would be the difference?
We do not offer a paid parental leave program. Employees are eligible for FML, but it may or may not be paid. And again, they would have to be eligible for FML under the federal guidelines.
Okay, I would love to see us go through this. I mean, I think not having something like that is really a deterrent for young parents especially.
But I'd need a little bit more information on what the impact of the budget is, what it costs us, how many times that we'd be incorporating this, what the requirements are. I need a lot more information than what you just gave us on one little slide.
Yeah, and that's what we would like to know. If it's of interest, we'll move forward and provide that. I can tell you off the top of my head, we have roughly 50 people within the organization on average who use parental leave under FML each year. So again, we could go back and then we could look at what those financial impacts would be to the organization.
Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to comment on the state plan, it says 12 weeks after the birth, adoption, or placement of a foster child, but also says 8 weeks and 4 weeks for the primary and secondary caregivers. Please explain 8, 4, and 12. How do those work together? 8
would be the primary caregiver. 4 would be a secondary caregiver for a total of 8 weeks if the parents worked at the same organization.
Okay, so 12. Okay, so if they both work for Sedgwick County, we would pay out 12 weeks for each of them?
They would have to define themselves as a primary caregiver and a secondary caregiver.
So 12 weeks collectively?
Correct.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Meissner.
I'm for studying further and if there's 50 people you think annually affected by this. Mm-hmm. So, and if it's a big plus for attraction and retainment, it's seems very reasonable to look further for sure into this.
Okay, but you're going to break this down and provide us more detail on the impact. Because right now we're short 200 in ComCare, we're short every place we look. And so not only do we need to know the financial impact, but the impact on our operations for something like this idea.
Yes, and that's why we wanted to present it in this manner, because we knew there would be a financial impact moving forward. And again, if you bless that we move forward with this, we would come back and show you what that impact would be within the organization. Okay. I'm trying to just get direction today.
So say a man's wife, the wife works at another organization. Would this study tell us if he would be eligible for 4 weeks? Or he and both the woman and the man have to work for Sedgwick County, or would this be if they have a baby, but the wife works at another organization, but the dad works for us? Would he be eligible for 4 weeks?
He would if he determines himself to be the secondary caregiver.
Okay, and it'll tell us that within this. Okay, yeah.
And again,
you'll break that down, right? You'll break that down as far as, do we know that data now though?
I would venture to say we don't have accurate data on that right now, because oftentimes if it's not paid, we might not capture that information, or a secondary caregiver might not go through FML to take the leave.
Okay, so we'll have to determine that. How many men have...
Chairman, to your point, as we roll through this today and Sheena rolls out these concepts and ideas, if the commission, and I think this example here is a perfect example, if the commission's will is, hey, we need more information financially, We will provide that, and some of it's going to require us to reach out to employees and have a communication, maybe some survey work. So it's going to be time intensive. So if the commission sees something that is just a non-starter, just from a staff time perspective, if then we won't waste time on that particular facet. If this facet interests the commission, you want financials on it, more information, better data, we can do that. And as we go through these items, this is kind of where we want to try to get to today. What's of interest to the commission and what is a non-starter, and then we'll report back in the future. So,
Okay, but not just financial impact, but the operational impact
absolutely,
also.
yes.
Thank you.
And again, these were ideas that we have heard over the past 12 months, and we did indicate to the commission that we would bring them back to make sure that you had a chance to provide us guidance on moving forward or not.
Just a follow-up question. So, again, we're anticipating a paid program for them to take up to 12 weeks off between both employees. Could it be split up and be 6 and 6 or 4? You guys said 4 and 8. Let's say they wanted to do something different.
That was just what the state had provided. If we
Okay.
want to do something different, by all means, we could do something different.
Okay.
But
I think Commissioner Cruz's point, and I actually had someone I know that this happened. The woman did not have a leave program. She had to go back to work, and the dad became the primary caregiver for essentially 3 months. Well, she went back to work, and so that, I think it depends on where the organization is. This might be where, the situation would indicate that the primary caregiver very well might be the dad, and I think that's an important point to be made here. I think if we talk about PTO, I think there's some tweaks to this idea that might play into PTO policy if we were to adopt such a program. But also, just want to make sure I'm clear. Regardless of whether we adopt this program or not, they still have FML, which is unpaid leave opportunities. That's available today.
yes, if they are with the employer for 1,250 hours, then they are FML eligible.
Basically, half a year's worth of, a little bit more than.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
The next item we would like your guidance on is sick, vacation, and PTO. And this has been something that has been brought up several times. Again, not having clear direction on if we want to move forward with examining what a PTO program would look like, or if we would like to just look at what our sick and vacation setup is right now. On average, we looked at 2021, and the vacation usage overall for all employees was just a little over 100 hours. The average sick use was a little over 60 hours for a total leave of 161 hours per year. That does not include any COVID leave. That does not include any FML leave. This is true vacation. This is true sick leave. And so this chart down below indicates the years of service. So employees receive more vacation based on their years of service. So 0 to 5 years receives 96 hours, equivalent to 12 days, and so on and so forth as you move down the tier. Sick leave, employees receive 12 days, 96 hours annually, and then it shows you the total of those hours. Now, many of the models for PTO that I've looked at and that I've reviewed indicate that you look at the number of vacation days an employee would accrue and then add on the average amount of sick leave that an employee was used. So in this example, on 0 to 5 years, an employee would still accrue 96 hours of vacation and then add in approximately 60 hours of average sick time use, would equate to maybe a standard PTO program where those employees could use 156 hours, or the equivalent of 20 days. Again, this is based on an 8-hour schedule, for use that they could use that. We would also look at putting in a cap for what that would be, because we know the organization would have some liability. Right now, we typically do not pay out sick leave unless an employee has a certain amount of sick leave hours and they retire from the organization. So again, there would be a lot of work back and forth if we wanted to move forward with a PTO program, look at examining a PTO program, or keeping our sick and vacation the way that we currently have it set up.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. Just this is one of those things where I think the private sector has moved on. The outdated vacation sick leave model is needs to be updated, in my personal opinion. One of the things we know about maybe our younger workforce is they are not interested in focusing on a career, perhaps. They may want to come in for 3 to 10 years, averages maybe 5 or 6 years, and then they move on to the next thing. And I think that's totally fine. That's the career progression that is very normal and typical today. But to put out there a goal that says you have to retire sometime in the distant future to be able to access your sick leave is not reasonable. And that use it or lose it policy, in my opinion, is for most people who don't, again, if they don't retire, the only way they can access their sick leave is to actually be sick. And I know that, some people, I think different departments maybe handle that differently, but to have to be sick to take off that time, in my opinion, is not ideal. If it was considered PTO, they could take off if they want to. They could schedule a vacation if they want to. If they're sick, they can take it off that way. But at the end of the day, if we would simply pay them out their PTO, it's a guaranteed. It's like a bank account. So there's money in the bank. They would probably come to work and bank that up and use it for more. It would improve the quality of life. They could plan to use it more in a more pleasing way to themselves and their families. I think this is one of those things where the private sector has left us behind, and we need to update our policy. I think the transition to this is the difficulty. But whether this is good for new employees, I think it's absolutely good. And if anybody who's currently here wants to transition to this policy, that's where things get a little bit difficult. But I think this is way, in my opinion, way better for someone who's going to be here for 5 or 6 years than it would be for them to essentially have to call in sick to get to access their sick time. And we just know that is happening. There's no question that it does happen. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Have we surveyed employees to what they prefer?
No.
Would that be
not.
something that we would do with this?
We would have to, if we wanted to do a survey, we would have to fully educate employees on the pros and cons of this.
I guess I don't really use these. I mean, it's been a little bit since I've been sort of in the private sector. So, I really have had a lot of flexibility in my career. So I just wonder, what employees would prefer is what I would like to hear from, to see, the people that actually use the policy and how they want to. Do they want to have vacation? Do they want to have PTO? Do they want to have one bank? I would like to hear from employees who actually utilize this.
Well, I agree. We need to talk with the employees a little bit. Can you back up one slide?
You bet.
So what your example here is that if we stay under the existing system, the total column is what they can receive today.
That's correct.
But if they want to take a day off and they've used up their vacation time, then they have to call in sick. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but sick leave is not designed to supplement vacation.
I understand,
Yeah.
but they're using it that way. It's obvious. But if we move away from the total column over to the PTO, that's what they would be able to receive, and they wouldn't have to call in sick. They'd be granted that many hours a year, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And is there a maximum? Do they bank part of it? Say you're 21 years and you've got 256 hours and you don't take anything for 2 years. Are you going to get 500 hours?
So the studies that I have read in talking about converting to a PTO program suggest that you allow them up to 12 weeks of leave. So that can cover FML events. Because, again, not everyone's using vacation. We have employees that are sick, have cancers and things like that need to use sick time. So they would be using converted PTO time to care for themselves.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably a good idea to find out what program that the employees would be more interested in. This is pretty generous. If you look at 288 hours a year, that's 7.2 weeks. I mean, that's pretty generous. Say that out of 12 months of the year, why you could receive almost 2 months a year off. So even with the 256 you're up there at 6 weeks. I mean, that's pretty generous in my opinion. Commissioner Howe?
Yeah, and along with that, I think that, calling in sick does disrupt the workplace. I think the managers, directors maybe have to overstaff a little bit to plan for people to call in sick because they don't know what's going to happen on any given day. Whereas PTO, since you don't have to actually be sick to use it, I think people would more likely plan their time off. And I think that's better for the employee. It's better for the department to have planned time off. And it would be my intention. By the way, back to Commissioner Cruz's point, I think it matters whether someone's a career employee. If they've been here for 10 years or longer, they plan to retire in Sedgwick County, their answer might be different than someone who is younger that doesn't really have any plan to be here. So I think that's, if we are going to ask employees, it might be good to capture, what is their history with Sedgwick County, what's their intention going forward, do they see themselves retiring here or not, because it might change their answer. But it would be my intention that once this essentially these hours goes into their account, that they would essentially own them. If they would quit or be terminated for any reason, I would want to pay that out. Whatever the balance is, they would get all of that. So there's no reason to use it before, any particular date. You'd be able to bank that up with a cap, and anything over a cap on we do this on their anniversary or once on a calendar day. Let's say, around Thanksgiving, for example, pay them for anything over their cap. And for some people who feel like they need more money, they may not want to take off 7 weeks. They would rather just, bank that up and hit their cap, and then somehow down the road get paid, if you will, in their own mind, a bit of a bonus that they've earned. It's their money. It goes above and beyond the regular salary. So to me, these are the things that the private sector is currently doing. And in terms of the someone gets cancer type of situation, I think this has to dovetail with a short-term and long-term disability program. And many employers pay for that as a benefit to their employees. So short-term and long-term disability covers people who become incapacitated through an accident or a disease for long-term salary. And by the way, I know people right now that have been on long-term disability for a very, very long time because they became disabled in some way in the workplace, and they get long-term disability insurance to this day, and it's been extremely long number of years. So to me, that in the end, that outperforms any type of a sick leave policy, because again, a sick leave policy is capped. Even today, when you hit the end of that, at the end of those hours, it's over. And I think the long-term disability program actually is better for employees, especially if it's paid for as an employer benefit. Thank you.
I don't know when the appropriate time to talk about it is, but would we be talking about work from home at any time? And how does that factor into this, given the nature of employees who can and who do have the ability to work from home because their job allows it? When will we be talking about that?
Well, in regards to sick and vacation usage?
Well, if I'm not feeling well, but I'm able to work from home, maybe I won't take...
If departments are flexible, sometimes they can do that. But at the same time, employees are sick. They use, a little over 60 hours on average. We have a high usage of FML that's not reflected in here because of people who are ill, or maybe have family members that are ill that they have to take sick leave for. But if departments are flexible, sometimes they can work. But I think we have to listen to an employee, and if they're saying I'm too sick to work, then they're too sick to work.
Sure, and I would never expect anybody to work when they're sick. But if they have a little cough or something, and they feel like they're up to working, and they don't want to have to call in sick, but they're able to work and get their duties done from home, will we be factoring that in at all? And maybe this isn't the time to talk about that. And so, will we be talking about the structure of our workforce at any time and the flexibility?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but that is a very good point. I think overall sick leave usage maybe has declined because we've increased our flexibility with those departments that work from home or have the ability to work from home.
So maybe that's something that we could factor in if we're able to really study this and figure out the best working environment, the best sick and vacation leave for our workforce.
I would caution, though, when we're talking about benefits, though, if you're providing more benefit to one area over another area, that could be problematic.
I want to also mention, Sheena, that there's some, we have other electeds in the room and division heads, department heads in here. If you guys want to weigh in, absolutely, this is supposed to be a discussion. So if you just kind of give Sheena the hand raise, and she could call you out when when the commission gets a break here. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I think that we are interested in something like this to an extent that, again, I don't know the financial impact on this. I'd also be interested if we're capping, exactly where we're capping different things. The payback, if someone banks all of this and then decides to take it when they exit the organization, what kind of impact is that going to have on our organization? Because we grant vacation hours or days to keep people refreshed. And if people don't take any of it and suddenly they want to bank it all to be able to get it at the end of their career, it's not meeting our goal, it's meeting some kind of a goal that they've got set. So, again, I think we need more information, but I don't have a problem with looking at it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sheriff Easter?
Well, good morning. One of the things that I do want to point out that is a struggle with the sheriff's office is the way that sick leave is done currently. And what I mean by that is that you have to bank 800 hours to get paid for those 800 hours at the end of your career. However, a lot of our long-term employees have been taught from the very beginning, you don't take sick leave unless you're actually sick, which means they bank that stuff unless they're really sick. And the reason you have that philosophy is if you have a cancer come up or you have involved in a major accident, you're still going to get paid by using that sick leave. The problem is at the end of their career, I have people that have over 2,000 hours of sick leave, which means they've done the right thing for the company or for the sheriff's office, and now they're only going to get paid for 800 of it, and they don't feel like it's right that they're going to give 1,000 plus hours back to the county. And so a lot of them will start using it at their end of their career, and it's problematic. And so I don't know how that can be worked on, Sheena, as far as the current policy when it comes to those type of things. I know how other agencies handle it, but I just didn't know if that's something that could be looked at. Thank you.
One quick question based on what the sheriff had to say. Do we have the ability to transfer sick leave to other employees?
So we have a catastrophic leave bank that employees can sell an amount. There is a process for that. HR works with finance, and we make sure that there's enough funds to cover what the employee is wishing to sell. It's not always what they want. So you could have someone who wants to sell 2,000 hours, and it's not feasible. It doesn't happen. And then if an employee needs to use that catastrophic leave, there's an application process that they go to access it. Okay,
so in the sheriff's case, someone comes down with a cancer or something like that. We've got a pool out there that employees can donate into so that another employee can use those hours.
Yes, but there's restrictions on what an employee can leave catastrophic leave for.
Okay.
So it's the big items like the cancers and terminal illnesses, as opposed to a cold and flu, and they just ran out of sick time.
Okay.
And I think the philosophy of that catastrophic leave was to get the employee to a disability component. Is that true, Sheena? There was a cap. Once you got to disability, then that catastrophic leave would be over then.
Yeah, and there's some instances where an employee has used catastrophic and they've been able to come back, which is a win for us as well.
Commissioner Howell.
So back to the sheriff's point, I am just curious, those folks that have 2,000 hours saved up, if they retire, rather than taking some of that time off, they are able to sell some. How much can they sell back?
800 hours.
800 hours is the max. Okay. How many of your newer employees bank up their hours? I mean, is that pretty normal for them to bank hours, or they tend to use them more quickly?
In the jail, they use them as soon as they get them.
Yeah. And I think that,
out in the field, they don't.
and I think that the psychology behind that is if I don't use it, I'm not going to get to take this day off. And there's some truth to that. So again, let me argue. There are some places in the county, and this is a good example, where transition of what do you do with grandfather and legacy employees versus hiring new employees. I think there's two ends of the spectrum, and there's some employees between those two ends that might see an advantage to moving to a PTO policy. I think you must have to say, we draw a line in the sand, new employees go to PTO, employees that have been here a long time and maybe close to retirement, we have to respect them, give them the deal that they signed up for. And there are some employees in the middle that might say, I would, given the opportunity to transition from that to this new program, I'd rather be on the new program. I think there's all three things have to be thought through. But I would not disregard PTO policies because we have some folks that have been here a long time and don't, we essentially promised them a deal. I think we need to follow through and give them that deal. But I don't want to take that away from them in any way. But I want that to be the reason why we don't go forward with what needs to happen for these other two categories.
So earlier you had said that you didn't agree with the use or lose aspect, and I agree with you on that. However, how would PTO, if people were banking their hours and still saving up over 1,000 hours, how would PTO be any different than what we have right now?
So
as far as the 800-hour cap.
Okay, so once again, I would personally say that we ought to cap it to 2 years of accrual. Anything above that, we would just pay them out hour for hour. And again, if someone says, "What happens if I'm, if I have a long-term disability of some sort?" That's where these long-term and short-term disability programs kick in for someone who needs to have long-term support. We don't depend on sick leave for a long. If you're a cancer patient and you need, 3 years off, this is probably not the right answer. I mean, long-term and short-term disability is a better answer for someone in that category. So, at the end of the day, those two programs, short-term, long-term disability, along with a capped PTO policy where we pay them out any hours that are over the cap, to me is very, very fair. And all the incentives are in place for someone to want to come to work and to bank those hours and either get a check at the end of the year or on their anniversary or whatever, or to have better time off because they can plan their time away from work. And it's better for the organization if they do plan their time away from work, because then you can say, we can schedule people to fill in people that's not showing up to work because they called in sick at the last minute. So to me, it's better for managers, it's better for employees, and I don't see a downside to this. Again, the entire private sector has pretty much gone this direction everywhere. We're the holdout. Thanks.
Well, I don't think we're going to make a decision today, but I think we would concur that we need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we got direction. Thank you. The next thing that we are going to talk about is life insurance. This has been brought up a couple times, and we wanted to take a look at it because we know if we change any of the setup that we have right now, it will have a financial impact on the budget. So right now, our life insurance is set up, again, this is paid through the organization, so it's set up on a salary range. There is an age reduction in place, and this is pretty standard throughout the industry. I think you recall Matt Cohan from IMA came and spoke with the commission. But we said, let's take a look at it at budget time and see what options we have available. So just right here, I just have that salary range. And again, the life insurance, if you're making 17 or less, life insurance coverage is at 10, and then it moves on down through the chart. And then the age reduction at 70 reduces by 35%, 75, 55, 80 is 70, and at 85, it reduces by 85%. Again, the current setup that we have now. So some of the options that we have in front of us, we've talked with IMA, our benefits consultant, and talked what could we do moving forward. And our first option is we could have no change. We could remain the same. But I don't think that's the will of the commission as we previously spoke. The next option is to remove the age reduction on the basic life plan. So again, that's the same tier setup that we had before. But there's an additional cost to that of roughly around $85,000, and that would be paid to through Advance Insurance, through Blue Cross Blue Shield, but there's an estimated cost to doing so. Our third option is to continue with the current plan and self-insure all of those employees over 70. So that means that we would have to have that gap coverage for not only the life insurance, but the AD&D as well, and we're estimating that roughly at $786,000. And so that would make us pay for everything at 100% if all of our employees in that age category had something happen to them. So again, that's having us self-insure them at 100%. The fourth option that we have available to us is completely alter the basic life tiers for all employees with no age reduction. So we could have all employees receive a $30,000 life insurance benefit at a cost of $125,000, $40,000 for $155,000, or $50,000 for $193,000. Now, one of the things about option D here is we'll go on to show you the average salary of our employee is roughly $50,000, just a little over $50,000. And so, again, with the options that we have available, and I'm going to click back to the previous slide. If our employees are making over $50,000, they're on this bottom salary range, they're still receiving a $50,000 benefit, pending that they don't reach the age of 70.
Well,
Chairman?
back up to the previous slide again.
Yep.
I have two problems with what we're doing now. One is that it's saying that our employees that are making $17,000 to $23,000 to $36,000 are worth less to our organization than somebody making $45,000 and above. And I don't believe that that's true. So I don't like this model on that side. Then it's saying that our employees that are above 70 are worth less to the organization than those that are below 70. Same argument. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that that's true. So I don't like this model on either side.
Okay.
So if you look at your options on the next slide, honestly, my preferred option would be somewhere with D, maybe number 3. And that values all of our employees the same, no matter what. It says that doesn't matter what salary you're getting or what your age is, you are valued to our organization exactly the same as every other employee that we have. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
So explain again the liability for item C. Would that, if an employee resigned or moved on, we would not be liable in that gap?
No, if they separated from the organization, right. We would not be liable for that. But this is assuming our roughly 22 employees that fit into this category would have catastrophic events, and we would be paying up to the maximum for both the life and AD&D. We don't think that would happen, but again, we would have to go and, of course, put that on our books as a potential liability if we self-insured ourselves on that.
And there's 22, you said?
Roughly 22.
Out of 3,000? That's kind of pricey, maybe. So C maybe is not, I'm seeing it for the first time, so I don't.
Yeah.
I kind of concur with Commissioner Dennis about D3 might kind of level it over, level it out everywhere. No questions asked. Just my thought.
Well, I don't know that we need a whole lot of additional analysis because you've given us the analysis on this one, on what it would cost us. So I don't know what the other commissioners think, but I kind of like D3 myself. Mr. Manager, you got any impact on what the organization or from our Lindsay?
Well, I'll go first, and then Lindsay can have a shot. We've talked about this a lot at staff. I think staff is also favorable to option D, wherever the number is that the commission's comfortable with going. But we echo your sentiments, Chairman. It shows value to all employees equitably. So I think the staff preference, at least my leadership team, prefers option D.
Okay, I think we got some guidance on this one.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next thing we're going to talk about, again, this is something that we previously spoke about, was our observed holidays. And what I've listed up here is our 2022 holidays that we have passed to observe, and then our anticipated 2023 holidays. And I just want to point out that there are 10 holidays on each, but you'll recognize in 2022 that our New Year's Day holiday actually fell in 2021. But we do recognize 10 holidays, which aligns with most other organizations, governmental organizations across the state. We do need to address one of the questions that came up last year in regards to the addition of a newly adopted federal holiday last year, Juneteenth, President Biden signed this legislation, making it a federal holiday in 2021. And we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, but that's one of the key areas we need to talk about. In addition to our holidays, we need to talk about holiday pay and possibly looking at a new holiday incentive pay. And I'll make sure that I don't intermix the two. We currently have holiday pay, and it's paid on the holidays that are approved by the BOCC. Now, I want to point out in our example here that holiday pay is paid on what you approve through that resolution. So holiday pay is paid on Monday, December 26th, not on December 25th, because the holiday is observed on the 26th, which leads us into the discussion if the commission would like us to explore a holiday incentive pay program. And this would incentivize employees to work on a legal holiday that does not otherwise receive holiday pay per policy. And I put some examples up here. New Year's Day is Sunday, January 1st, and Veterans Day is Saturday, November 11th. And so those are both observed holidays for 2023. So if we looked at a holiday incentive program, that means that an employee working on Sunday, January 1st, or Saturday, November 11th would actually be paid in holiday incentive pay. And I just made these numbers up just to use as an example, but if an employee worked anywhere from 15 minutes to 4 hours, they would receive an additional $100 on that legal holiday, or if they worked the course of a full day, they would receive $200. So continuing on with that example, on Martin Luther King Day, we had 491 employees actually working on that day. The actual working cost, so those employees who were performing the work on that day, was a little over $102,000. If we were to look at a holiday incentive pay, again, working on that actual holiday, we would look at 109 of those employees that worked 4 or less hours would receive the $100, and 382 would receive the full pay of $200 at $76,400 for a total of $87,300. And again, in 2023, this would apply to 2 holidays. Otherwise, the legal holiday and the observed holiday fall on the same date. And again, just making that up, but we've heard back from employees, working holidays is hard. We operate 24/7 departments, and it's very hard when someone is receiving the holiday pay on a different holiday and they're actually asked to come in on that legal holiday. So I'd like to get the commission's thoughts on a few different things here. And I'm just going to briefly run through this and then I'll open it up to you. Does the commission wish to observe Juneteenth, which would be Monday, June 19th, 2023, as an observed holiday or a paid holiday? Does the commission wish to pursue a holiday incentive program that we would explore a little bit more? Number 3, this is actually pulled from Johnson County, what Johnson County does. Does the commission wish to incorporate the following language into a pay policy? In the event that December 24th falls on a Monday or December 26th falls on a Friday, then that day would also be considered a paid holiday. And this would occur only in 2025 and 2029 in our foreseeable future. And then finally, the last piece, does the commission wish to change the name of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day? And there's some information in your packet. Again, you can read that. We don't need a decision on that today, but it is something we need to know moving forward.
Comments from the commission?
Chairman, just when we talked about this, adding a potential holiday earlier, we talked about giving the employees a chance to pick one of the holidays that they wanted to observe. In other words, we didn't necessarily shut down county government on this day, but if they wanted to if they wanted to take that day off, we would certainly accommodate them any way we possibly can. But the idea of adding a holiday to me is there's a fiscal impact. So I'm a little concerned about the fiscal side of this, but I don't personally care if someone wants to take a different day off. Then as long as the departments can handle the flexibility, I want to be flexible if we can, but I'm not really in favor of adding another holiday to the mix personally. I don't mind some flexibility though. And regarding, I think there's a lot on this slide. I think we need to probably chew on some of these things for a little bit and come back and talk about this some more. I don't think I'm ready to decide anything today, though.
Okay. Well, I don't believe I'm ready to add one more holiday. If we want to delete a holiday somewhere, that might be a possibility. I don't know what the flexibility is. I understand what Commissioner Howell was asking, but I don't know what the impact on the organization would be if certain people said, well, this is the holiday I want to take off, and this is the holiday I want to take off, and suddenly, why, we don't know what our staffing level is going to be on certain days. So that might be problematic. So I want to make sure that if we allow flexibility, that we know what the impact is going to be on the entire organization. I don't know that the rest of those items up there, it's going to take me a little bit to decide what my preference would be on any of those at this point in time. So I don't know that I can give you a direct answer on the 2, 3, and 4. Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a chance to speak again. The employees that are working on those holidays, first of all, they get straight time automatically. Whatever hours they work, they do get paid for. A lot of places, if you're working a holiday, would treat that like an overtime day. So they would treat, they would look at this like a time and a half day rather than a straight time day. That's possibly one way to do that. Rather than giving you a number of dollars, it could be based on their salary, and treat it like it's an overtime day. Give them half pay, for any hours worked on a holiday. Do we do anything like that today?
On a holiday, no.
Well, we have lots of departments here that have to work 24/7. Our 911, our fire, our EMS, and others. And I don't know, and Sheriff, you have deputies that have to work 24/7, and I'm sure that some of them work on these days off, these holidays. Is there any accommodations whatsoever in the pay structure for these folks who are working on those days, or you just try to make sure they work Christmas this year and they don't have to work Christmas next year type of thing? How do you handle that?
No, I mean, they have to work the holiday at a straight pay.
Straight pay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think those employees also get holiday pay in addition to the
Do they?
straight hours that they work. So they're essentially
Okay.
getting twice of their salary for that day instead of 1.5.
So they get holiday pay whether they work or not, but they also get straight pay on top of
Although
after
we'll
hours
let
worked.
Anna and Bethany, I can see them.
So the holiday pay would be on actually what's observed. So if they
Right.
work that day, they do get double pay. But if they don't work that day, then they just receive the holiday pay. Right. Yeah. And it may work out into an overtime issue. It depends on where that holiday's at and where they're at within their hours.
I guess for me, if we were going to play with this at all, I would say to treat that as a premium pay day. Again, they're going to get holiday pay whether they work or not. So I don't want to calculate that into this discussion. If they work a holiday because it's a very special day, if they got paid overtime for that day, in other words, say time and a half for hours worked on a holiday, to me that would be something we could probably think about that. But right now there's no incentive to work on a holiday because you're going to get straight time whether you're there or not. So to them it's just a downside to have to work on a holiday. There's no benefit to working on a holiday at all. So to me, to split this discussion, to me, time and a half on a holiday, if you are called to work. The one thing about this is if we start incentivizing working on holidays, I don't want to have extra people working on holidays just because they would like to go after that extra pay. So to me, we have to make sure we manage this as well. But I would be interested in potentially looking at time and a half for worked time over a premium pay over a holiday if you have to work.
Thank you. So talking about Juneteenth, as we have these conversations about being more inclusive with DEI work at the county level and really just across the country, I do think it's really important that we figure out a way to do that. So can we see the cost analysis of what it would be to add a holiday or look at roaming holidays or whatever it is that we come up with? But I do think it's important that we are observing that day because it is a very important day, and we need to, as we have these conversations about DEI at the county level, we need to make sure that we're being intentional about how we're addressing some of these things. So I think it's important that we look into that a little further.
I have to say, when we talk about Juneteenth, that this holiday in many ways represents how freedom and justice has been always delayed in this country for Black people. And so I would be in support of that. I do believe that changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, the city has already done that. I think we could take a play out of their playbook and continue doing that. In addition, I mean, we can talk about why we would do it, but I think that's a whole further discussion that I don't know that we want to get into today, but I would be in support of changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day and observing Juneteenth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Related to holiday pay, it's kind of a tricky one for me to digest, but I really would trust the holiday leadership managers, meaning sheriff, Laura, 911, EMS, all those that actually live the holidays. I feel a little out of place as a commissioner to say this is what you should do when I think I would really trust what they would think would be best. Balance it against budget and cost and everything else. But that's where I feel on that holiday pay. I'd rather I'm probably forgetting a few departments, but whoever experiences it, if their management closest to their employees would weigh in, would be of value to me.
And I would just add that there's other departments too that are not 24/7 that do work on the holidays as well.
Right.
One of them that just comes to mind is payroll. They're often putting in times when our holidays fall on Monday to make sure that process gets started so that we can all be paid by the end of the week. So it falls outside of 24/7s.
And then as far as item 1 and 4, I just need to digest it as well. We're Kansas, and I know Sedgwick County is a large population along with Johnson, and I don't mind being a leader in some of these areas, but I don't want to go counterproductive to what maybe the state of Kansas is as a whole. I'd just like to kind of know more about where that is. I think both of those items are being discussed a little bit nationwide, state by state, city by city, and I'd just like to hold off before I weigh in on that personally. Thank you.
Well, once again, I will not vote to add another holiday. If we want to change Columbus Day to Juneteenth and swap those two, that's a possibility also. But I don't believe that it's time to add one more to our budget right now.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Just point out, Columbus Day is not a paid day off. So it's a work day. So we'll make sure we have that
Okay.
clear. Thanks.
Well, then we can't swap those.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we are going to.
Sheena, could I let me get some clarification for me on, can you tell, was there a reason, I'm back to Commissioner Howe's overtime scenario on holiday pay, was there a reason we looked at a flat pay model versus the overtime model? And I'm looking at staff that have to manage this. Is it easier to manage overtime versus a flat salary payout for holiday pay? And then the second question that I'm looking to staff to get clarity on is if we would create a rotating, I think when we talk about Juneteenth or another holiday, I think organizationally it's going to be more manageable if we all or none. In other words, if we substitute a holiday for another, I'm not sure we can create a rotating holiday policy where everybody can kind of just take whatever holidays they want. I don't think we can manage that. And it creates staffing concerns and other issues. And we are so service-oriented where the sheriff has to maintain a certain staff, EMS, fire, corrections have to maintain certain staffing levels. I think it would create a conundrum. Can you comment on that at all? Can any staff in here that would have to help manage this want to say anything here?
So I would say the flat rate is going to be easier to manage because remember, we have more than just hourly employees working on those holiday pays or holidays. In addition, I think the broader conversation has to involve payroll as well, being able to pull that time in and manage that. It's a lot bigger than just putting someone's equivalent rate there.
I was just going to echo Sheena. We're going to have to figure out what the system's even capable of. So today it's, do you want us to look into holiday pay? Great. We're going to have to get with Meredith to talk about what e-timesheet can even do.
Sheriff Easter.
The only thing that I would add is that, yes, it is straight time. I'm sorry, they do get holiday pay. One of the things, if you go to time and a half that I experienced over at the city, because they do have time and a half plus holiday pay, is you'll have people that will say, well, I can make more money, so I want to work. You have to manage that and tell them, no, your position is not crucial. Now, if you want to take the place of a beat deputy who has to work, then so be it. But coming up to judicial, where there's nothing going on, just so you can get time and a half plus holiday pay, can't happen. So you have to manage that. That's the only thing I would say about the time and a half aspect of this conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Commissioner Howell brought that up, that all of a sudden now employees may want to work that day. If you're not scheduled for that day, normally you're not going to be able to just go work that day with your discretion. You have to be scheduled that day. So I agree, that does have to be managed though.
Sorry, Tim.
Whatever we do, I think it's important that we do have an incentive. ComCare in particular fills holidays, weekends, evenings, nights with part-time staff, and so there's got to be some kind of an incentive for those folks as well. So that's one of the advantages to a flat rate for those shifts.
Moving forward, talking about shift pay. Since 2009, we have kept the shift differential at 75 cents, and we've spoken to many departments that struggle with second and third shift workers. And we've stated that we would address this within a budgetary session, again, because whatever we look at will have a financial impact. So again, that shift differential is 75 cents, and the departments that are affected by that are listed above. Again, applies to second and third shift. First shift may receive it. There's a caveat if they're working that shift with 5 or more hours within that block. And in 2021, for total shift pay, we've paid just under $150,000. So the question before the commission is, do we want to look at increasing that shift differential? Again, 2009 was the last time that we have increased that at all.
Commissioner Howell?
So I guess free market way to look at this, do we have any feedback from employees? Is there challenges getting people to work overnight, or is there people willing to work at that rate? I think we need to know how difficult it is to get people to work those shifts based on that extra pay.
Tim?
It's very difficult. And one of the issues that we see in exit interview information relates to compensation in general, but particularly weekend shifts, overnight shifts, very difficult to fill at 75 cents an hour.
Can we see what other counties or other government agencies are doing with that and kind of compare to what we're doing today? I do think that we probably need to up that, but I just don't know realistically by how much would be the appropriate amount.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tim, do we have any information around, like for ComCare, for example, with our crisis unit, and do we see like a hazard pay? Do we have a hazard pay?
No.
No? I guess my question really remains around the complexity, the emotional toll of some of these jobs. I mean, they're all day. I mean, they're emotionally taxing on our employees. But I just wonder, at this hour, what do we see as far as at ComCare specifically in our crisis unit?
Right now, we're really struggling for that overnight therapist, the master's level licensed person, we're really struggling to get those shifts filled. Weekends are even more difficult because we need to have someone at that level with those skills throughout the course of the day, and we've got to have them overnight, and it's just really difficult to fill that shift right now.
Okay, so I would be in favor of checking it out. I do agree with looking at other places around and see, what they're doing for a shift differential. I would like to see about what other counties are doing in regards to hazard pay. Is there something like that? Does that exist?
You would have to define what you mean by hazard pay.
Well, I guess hazard, yeah, that's a pretty big word. So, we're finding a lot of folks leaving, and Tim, you can speak to this again. As I mentioned, the complexity, the emotional toll that takes on crisis workers in the jail. I mean, everywhere that we have, our EMS workers, they're seeing some pretty intense things. They're dealing with people's worst days of their lives. We have a social service industry right now that is just taxed beyond belief. And I just wonder, how we show them that they're valued by paying them enough to stay and do this work. So in addition to shift pay or the differential between night and day shift, I wonder, what other communities are doing to really show those employees that we value not only the time that they put in to help people. People are complex, but their expertise and their experience. What we're losing with people who are walking out the door is years of experience because they just can't do it anymore. It's too emotionally taxing on people. So I guess I would like us to consider the complexity of these departments, the emotional and physical toll it takes on their body and their families, because we're asking them to really sort of help this community heal in a way. And that is tough, and it's not to be discounted just to a 75 cents shift differential, I think. So I hope that you understand what I'm talking about. Tim, you're shaking your head. Maybe you can, elaborate on that. But I think it's important for us to really value those folks who are trying to help our community heal.
It's an interesting question, and I'll work with Joan to check and see what other community mental health centers in particular do. We can also check with hospitals, emergency rooms. They're seeing similar things. It's not uncommon for pay in more complex areas of an organization to be increased, so we can look at that a little bit.
But it's a general pay increase, right? It's not. I'll answer your hazard pay question. There's organizations, fire and police mostly, when you shift into a special call-out mode, like a SWAT call, those employees go into hazard pay during that time period when they are in that mode of operation. Then when they go back to normal shift hours, they go back to normal pay. So there's hazard pay models out there. What we're talking about, though, is taking a group of employees that have these really difficult service jobs right now and compensating them to a level that is equitable to what we are asking them to do. And I think there's going to be further discussion. We have some really robust discussion we're going to have a little bit about total compensation of the organization. But and when you look at the county, we have a number of 24/7 holiday working kinds of people and service that we're going to have to address. So I don't know that it's so much of a designation as it is just a compensation for these groups of people that are doing extraordinary work. So
I agree with the manager. My comments will be that I don't know that 75 cents an hour is going to fill ComCare with 100% staffing today, because that's not the problem. Now, granted, pay is a problem. Let me back up one step. But the biggest problem is there's no pipeline. If we went out today and we said we're going to give you $100,000 a year, we're not going to get anybody because there's no pipeline there for them right now. So we've got to establish the pipeline first. We've got to get the Health Science Center here that's starting to help us develop the the folks for social work to move them into the comm care. But right now, I don't know. Tim can dispute me. I don't know. But everything I've heard is that there's no pipeline to fill the openings that we've got right now.
There are pipeline problems. There's no question about that. But if we were offering our therapists $100,000 a year, we'd have them all full.
All right.
Okay, so we will look into some different models that are available. The next thing we want to talk about is longevity. And this has been, excuse me, a program that's maybe been less frequently talked about amongst staff, but we currently have a frozen longevity program. Approximately 150 employees benefit from this program. It was frozen back in 2003, and you can see years of service. This is the annual amount that they would receive. What we are looking for from the commission today, again, these employees are still receiving this, but would you like us to look at some sort of longevity program for current employees? And if so, we could come back with different models. Or is this something, longevity is not something you want to address in this budget year? Again, keeping these frozen.
Is this an issue the commission wants to pursue further? Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not against longevity pay, but I don't think this is a major decision point for any of our employees. It's a nice to have. I don't think it's going to be a key incentive either way on their career decisions. So I don't know that it's a priority necessarily in the big discussion today.
Well, as we look at the total pay, especially like our firefighters and EMS and so forth, kind of steps and tracks is what I'm more interested in. And I guess longevity goes with those tracks. So if we're already doing it, I'm not sure. Is this what we're doing today?
Yeah, now sheriff and firefighters have, very similar. This is a general scale, but they're still frozen, if you will.
Are we going to get to a discussion on steps and tracks here in this briefing, or?
A little bit.
A little bit. What about fire?
Tess.
Yeah. We have a study underway right now for a step plan for both fire and EMS, and again, the DA is involved with that. We are meeting with our consultant on March 9th, and again, we're involving those departments in that. So we're making progress, but we don't have an update as of today. We'll come back later on in the process. We're estimating in April to come back to the commission with further information on what the consultant says about the step plans.
Okay, well, my last discussion with EMS, I told them we were going to look at this, and I've told fire we're going to look at this, so I don't know where we're going to look at it at, so I want to make sure that we keep that as one of the items.
Yeah, we are currently looking at it. We just have no update on it.
So again, this kind of fits into that model. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Ironically, just this last week, I had a pretty good discussion with a fairly large employer that was challenged with everything we've talked about. He's trying to get up to speed with competitive pay, and he talked about signing bonuses, and then we went through the history of what we challenged with, and so I told him some of the options that we've been hashing over, and he was really, because of, you sign it, the bonus, then you've got the current workers saying whatever, and anyway, this longevity pay entered the conversation, and he really hadn't thought of that, and thought that was, from his perspective, and this is a private inspector, he thought, wow, a longevity check at the end of the year is a great idea, of value. It may not be a lot, but it is something. It allows, I know we've talked to Sheriff Easter, when there was a check that comes, if you're not making a whole lot, it allows you to do something at the end of the year that's a purchase that maybe you wouldn't have done before. And so it's got a little bit of this benefits on the side benefit, emotional, whatever you want to call it.
Morale.
Right. So I am for longevity pay. I think it helps balance out as we get into other stuff. Thank you.
Thinking about it from that perspective, I think it is I have no issue with longevity pay, but if we are incentivizing people to come to work for us, I'm sure that's people who are already here could feel that that's not necessarily fair. So if that's the case, then longevity pay would kind of help balance that. So I do agree that looking into this further would be beneficial to our staff that's been here for a while.
Hey, I don't see any other comments.
Sheena,
Okay. Yes.
if you don't mind, real quick, the thing that I would like to express to the commission is that we're early on in our pay study. We're using the same entities that we used last time. It's showing that we're about 20% below what the others are paying. By no way, shape, or form do we expect that we're going to get 20% raises, by no means. But when we look and compare to other entities our size, cities the same size, counties the same size, not only are they paying more, they are offering the incentives and longevity pay and those type of things. So I understand that, longevity pay really doesn't exist at this day and age. It exists for a few of our employees that are more senior, but there has to be other things that we can compete with. Right now, just from a sheriff's office standpoint, we're the 5th lowest paid law enforcement agency in Sedgwick County. And some of these other places are offering things besides the pay to incentivize people to come there. Now, there's give and take with that. A lot of those folks that are going there for the $10,000 bonus, their benefits being paid for, those type of stuff, their upward mobility is pretty limited in those places, unlike here. So we sell ourselves on that. But comparing ourselves with just even entities around Sedgwick County, but the same folks, there is other things that they offer besides better pay. So just throwing that out there.
What else do they offer besides?
As far as these other agencies, well, longevity pay, bilingual pay, education pay, clothing allowance is a big one. So, like Park City, they're offering a $10,000 signing bonus to go work for them. Other folks are offering where they pay for their share of their insurance. I'm not sure that's a big draw, to be honest with you. But some of these other things are a draw, and we've lost people to those agencies because of those things.
That reminded me, Sheriff, when you're talking about that. Again, back in, for those who have been around for a number of years, in the private sector, there used to be, quote, a Christmas bonus that people would say, oh, well, a Christmas bonus was handy, and it might make those that were maybe going to quit said, well, I'm going to wait till after my Christmas bonus. And in also the private sector, there's profit sharing based on the performance of the company that you would never know, but it would keep you drive to work towards the mission of whatever that company is. So I just think something like this, again, it has benefits to just add to the other thing. It's not the end all be all, but just adding that. Thank you.
Thank you. As commissioners, we have to look at the entire organization. So some things that we do for one division or one office is going to impact what we have to do for all of the different organizations, because we don't want to get kind of a big imbalance between them. But I think the Sheriff's Department is kind of a unique organization that we need to take a special look at that organization. And I agree, they are right now, we can't have them being the 5th lowest, because what it means is that we're suddenly a training organization for other departments. And so the turnover is big in that area. So I think we need to go back. I don't know if you got it on future slides. I haven't looked through, but I think that is one, and I don't know if there are other organizations, possibly EMS, but we need to take, we gave some large pay raises last year to the sheriff's department, and then city comes along and says, oh, we're going to start everybody at $24 an hour, and we're going to give them a dollar bump as soon as they finish training. And so that affects us when the folks out at the prison in El Dorado, the governor gives them a big pay raise, then the sheriff loses everybody and they all go to El Dorado. So somehow that one organization is critical. We can't say that tomorrow we're going to just close down the jail. He's got, last I heard, 177 murderers in jail right now. And so somehow, I don't know if you've got the sheriff's department separate, but I think we need to talk about that a little separately at some point.
Okay. Very
Thank
good.
you.
I think to that point, though, we have departments that it's like a trickle down. We have our ComCare crisis that if they were to handle the folks in the community rather than waiting till they are critical to the point where we have to call law enforcement in, that does add more people to our jail that could be cared for within the community. So I think having the people that have the prevention knowledge to keep people out of law enforcement and out of our criminal justice system are just as crucial. So while I do agree, we have to pay, people what they're worth and to show them that they're valued, but we have to understand that prevention efforts are just as critical and will keep people out of the sheriff's office, will keep people out of the jail. We're sitting with how many people waiting for an evaluation? 20-some?
22.
22. At what point in their lives, if they were to receive care in the community, would they have gotten to that point? Those are the prevention efforts in our community that help mental health, substance abuse, so that they don't escalate into those more psychological issues that turn into violence and criminal acts. And so the things that we've been talking about for a very long time, and is number one on our legislative platform for many, many years now, is behavioral health. And supporting those who do that stuff in our community will allow us to care for them in a place that isn't the criminal justice system and isn't our jail. We know that people are sitting in our jail right now and they're just sitting there. There's no real programs. So community-based services are really the crux of helping our sheriff's department. That is the crux of helping those in our jail to receive services in the community rather than a criminal justice system that is designed to keep them in it.
And if I could just clarify a couple things real quick. When I give these comparisons, it's just because of the studies that we're doing within the sheriff's office. We are in no way, shape, or form, dispatches are in trouble, Tim's groups are in trouble. We have people bleeding off from this organization, which is the county, from all over. So when I talk about incentive pay and those type of things, it's for the entire county. I'm not talking specifically just for the sheriff's office, because we, as a team, we rely on each other as the county. We rely on payroll and finance all the time within the sheriff's office, and they have to be up to speed. So I don't want to if I'm making it sound like just the sheriff's office, that's not my intention whatsoever. We have issues throughout the entire organization that need to be addressed, and we completely understand that.
And that's why I prefaced my comments, say that anything we do has to look at the entire organization and not just one department or organization. And I agree with Commissioner Cruz that our number one item is our behavioral health. But that is not going to be solved overnight. We're looking at the 2023 budget right now. And so we've got to solve the immediate problems and then take a look at the long-term problems beyond that. Thank you.
All right. The next item, we actually just talked about this in the discussion, was the possibility of looking at bilingual pay. What we would look at is having departments go through with the help of HR, and we would review the positions that have a business need for bilingual pay. And I think that goes across the entire organization. that we see the need for that, and we see people using those skills. And so we just came up with an example, again, looking through some other policies at SHRM, Bilingual Pay, possibly paying an additional $35 per pay period for someone who has passed a proficiency test and has a business need for bilingual pay.
What is the 35? What does that mean?
This was an example of one policy that we had found. It was an additional $35 per pay period for that person who is using bilingual skills within their job duties.
Okay. Do we have any sort of requirement for our departments? Who sets those requirements as far as? Let me get my question out. The number of folks who cannot speak English using our county services, do we know that data? I noticed that we put up bilingual signs in our courthouse. Mm-hmm. Do we have all of those literature in the ancillary parts of our county, like at ComCare and our Stillwell complex and all of the places like down on Harry? Do we have bilingual signs there? Do we have people working that are bilingual in ComCare? Do we have, how do we know if we're really fulfilling the need of our community? Does that make sense at all? Mm-hmm. I can't believe I couldn't get that out. Sorry, y'all.
For example, at ComCare, we do produce some of our literature in multiple languages. We've got folks that are bilingual working. We don't have as many as we'd like, of course, and we make extensive use of the language line. So we've got translator services at the county available to all of our staff, and we use that quite a bit.
So I know with in our sheriff's office, Sheriff Easter, we had some questions around folks not reporting things because domestic violence issues, not feeling safe coming into our courthouse, not knowing how to navigate it. So do you have any plans or anyone in, the courthouse police, I guess, is different. So how do we plan to have courthouse policemen? I know that's not your deal, but how many people work in the jail are bilingual?
We have several bilingual folks, mainly in Spanish throughout the organization. We have a few in different Asian language skills, and that's about it, both with Asian and Hispanic, but they're throughout the organization.
So what about courthouse police, Tom? Do we have any plans for that? Because I know that that's been a real concern. I mean, I know that both Commissioner Lopez and I have both had questions around, folks coming into our courthouse and not really knowing where to go, feeling really unsafe, just because, first of all, they're domestic violence survivors, right? They're domestic violence victims. And so they're trying to navigate the court system, which we've worked with our court system to help with those forms, but just like the initial walking into our courthouse.
I don't know if Tanya can answer how many current employees we have that are bilingual in Courthouse Police, but
it's been a while since I've asked Daryl that, and I can refresh that question with him. But I know that when he looks for applicants, he's always asking and looking for if anybody is bilingual. I know that he had at least one or two that could speak Spanish and one that could speak Vietnamese.
I think what Sheena's trying to get to with this bilingual pay discussion is, and quantitatively, we don't know how many people in our community speak Spanish, Laotian, Vietnamese. We know they're there, and it's hundreds, thousands of people. Organizationally, what we're obligated to provide is signage and language in the English language, but we know to provide better service that we have to speak multiple languages and have multiple languages on signage and those types of operations that allow people to navigate county business better. We know we aspire to do that. The question for the commission is, on this particular issue, on bilingual pay, is how valuable do you think it is? If you find value in it, then support it, and we will fund it in, we will get numbers, and we will move forward. I think we should support it. I think we have a number of citizens, and it's growing every day in this community, and they come to the courthouse for all kinds of issues, most of them bad, to where they're intimidated when they come in, they're frightened when they come in, now they can't speak a language when they come in. And if you've ever been to a foreign country, you know how assuring it is to when you run into that English speaker, that man, you feel comfort, you feel connection, and you feel, so reverse that now for here. So I think we aspire organization, I know I do, we aspire organizationally to meet the needs of all people. How much do we want to do it? How much does the commission feel impassioned to do that? That's the question that we're trying to get to with this particular slide and issue.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you. I do support this. I just don't know what would be the appropriate amount. So I would like to understand what would be the appropriate amount. But it just begs a larger question to me, to know, what do you see in the treasurer's office? What do you see in the Register of Deeds office? I'd like to hear from the two of you in the clerk's office. What do you guys see as far as the need, and are you able to fulfill it? When you hire someone, does someone speak another language in your office? Are we actively recruiting for people if we don't have those types of services? I guess those are the questions that I have when we talk about bilingual pay, because it goes hand in hand with this. So I guess I'd like to hear from you if you guys have some thoughts.
In the Register of Deeds, we usually actively try to recruit at least one person to speak Hispanic language, and we always have one because we have customers that come in all the time and they can't speak any English, and so they're trying to fill out all these real estate documents and they can't navigate through it. So, and we actually would even share that employee that could speak Spanish to help out even in the county clerk's office at one time. And I think it'd be great to have a compensation and have them paid extra for that. Because, that's just a benefit for the county and for our department and for the public. So,
with the treasurer's office, we only have a couple people that do speak bilingual, and with all the citizens coming in, there's so many, and it would be beneficial, yes, to have that extra pay, something that we could show them as they're applying that, we're going to value this and we want this. I do think it's very important that we have something like this.
I would add on to this just really fast. I do agree with the bilingual pay, just an addition on their paycheck. But I also think if we're pulling people from their job at the moment to help with someone else, that there should be, I don't know if it's like an additional hourly wage or something, and really making sure that they know that we appreciate what we're doing, because if we paid for another service to come in, it would be exponentially more expensive than doing, I think, this route. So I do think it's important that we are speaking to people in a language that they understand, and having, I know we have the phone where we can call in, but that's really not the same. And this, our minority communities are growing every year. So I do think, in addition to on their paycheck every week or every other week, even having an hourly rate if we're utilizing their services, because we are pulling them from the job that they should be doing, and so it is an additional task that they're taking on.
I don't see any other comments.
Okay. Moving on, this slide is just a simple recap of what we've done with the sign-on program. Again, this policy was approved on August 25th of 2021 to see if we could recruit more employees into these hard-to-fill positions. And as an update, excluding this last pay period, we have paid $121,500 for 54 employees who are eligible for this. 47 of those are still active. I did not include anything with the sheriff's office on this because that was different than the policy. This is strictly our policy. But you can see where we're getting those numbers and how much we have paid out. Another thing that we do have in the wings, and we don't have enough information, so I didn't put a slide up here, but we can also look at a referral bonus option. That is something that Mike and his staff in IT have helped us work with. If we have an employee who actively recruits a successful new hire, there are options that we can tie those two employees together, and then that employee that recruits them could receive some sort of referral bonus. But again, that's sitting over on the side. We have not implemented anything, but it is an option for us. But this is where we're at with the sign-on program. I think it has been successful. I don't think it is as successful as we'd like it to be. We'd like to have those positions filled more, but we're competing with a very hard market right now. I think someone mentioned earlier $10,000 signing bonuses, and we're nowhere close to that. So it's very, very tough. But we are doing things. So thank you for passing these policies, allowing us to recruit a little bit differently. But we are paying out on our sign-on program. Yeah. Excuse me. That was me.
Bless you. Hey, so that previous slide, the program, there you go. So I know we had a lot of, maybe not a lot, but we had some good discussion about what was the magic number per department. Now that we've done this and we've got a little history, is that still a comfort zone for? You said it's not been as successful as you wanted.
I think every department that is listed up here would tell you that they want more employees. Again, some of these may have been more successful than others, but we're nowhere close to being fully staffed in these departments.
Okay.
And, one of
but
the
you're
things...
not proposing, you're not asking us to change this necessarily?
Just a simple update.
Right.
If you would like to continue on with this program, we would encourage that. And again, like I said, the other option we have is we could look at doing a referral program as well for current employees. So again, taking care of those employees that are currently with us as we're taking care of these employees who are coming on board with us.
A referral program might be a good one to add to that.
Okay.
Not maybe a lot of money, but if they employee referrals,
Yes.
500 or something. I don't know what the number is, but I do know that other places do that, a referral program. So that would be a good addition. Thank you from my perspective. Thanks.
Can you remind me if there is a requirement to stay on for a certain period of time to get this, or they just get it and then they can?
It was a 90
day?
I can't remember now. 60 day. Yeah. So they had to complete that, and then we would make sure that
You didn't get the pay till you hit your 60th day.
That's correct.
But then
And
past
again,
that,
47
Commissioner,
of
no.
those are still active of the 54 that were paid the signing bonus.
Is that a long enough time?
I think it is. I don't think you want to extend it any further, simply being because it is a sign-on program.
And so what would be what are you, I do agree with the referral program. Would that be sort of have you thought about that before? Do we have any other examples that we could look at that are doing a referral program? Would it be similar to this as far as someone staying on a certain period of time, the person they referred for them to get this?
So there is some connectivity in regards to how the system is set up. So we would have to put a point in time that person would have to be a successful hire and then complete X amount of days of employment. And then what that would do it would cycle through, and then the system would say this person is connected to them through the referral, and it would be processed that way. But referral bonuses, in my opinion, would not look anything like this. I think you're talking more about a couple $100s. And
Sure. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And would it only be if they referred to these areas, or would it be a referral across the board at the county?
I would say across the county, because these are positions that are hurting really bad. But at the same time, the better workforce that we have here, the best recruitment, we're our best recruiters. So if we can get anyone into those roles, I think it's a true benefit.
Great. Thank you.
And out of the employees that you've hired and 47 still active, how long did we retain the other ones that aren't active any longer?
I would have to dig into that and look. One of them, I recall, left just days after. But I don't have the details on that. I'd have to look.
So should there be a clawback if they leave days after? That they come on for 60 days, grab a bonus, and head out?
We did not put that into our policy of a clawback.
Okay.
I don't know if Trish wants, I think Trish is here. We talked about that a lot, Commissioner, that the concept of a clawback, and I think Mike had some issues. Trish, I don't know if you want to comment on that, but Mike Papoon had some issues with any kind of clawback component on whether we could go back and grab that or not, so.
All right. Next
Okay,
item.
all I can tell you is that there's some implications with employment law, and Mike has not talked to me specifically about that, but we'd have to really take a look at that to make sure we're in compliance with all of our other employment law requirements. So,
Sheena, I have a question.
Yeah.
So on that sign-up, the sign-on bonus, is it only limited to the listed departments that are there?
Yes.
And the reason why I'm asking, even in our department, a smaller department, the starting pay for an employee to come in there is like just a little over $13 an hour. And right now we have 2 openings in our office, and the pool of, candidates in there is just not that great. And so we're having a hard time actually filling those 2 positions because you can go and work at Target and make a lot more than what we're offering as a starting pay. So I don't know about that sign-on bonus. I guess that was something that maybe was approved earlier on, but I would love to see that where possibly something could be done to help out our departments to get some employees in there.
Well, we are going to take a break right now, but I want to just emphasize, I'm coming back to these 3 questions of what will we do to retain and motivate our employees, what will we do to attract new talent, and how do we address these economic conditions with outside competition. So, Tom, how long do you want to take a break for?
Chairman, what do you say?
Chairman?
10:30, okay? Or?
Okay. Great. Again, just wrapping back up to these 3 questions, since we're talking about our employees and what we're going to do to retain, motivate, and attract new employees. Last week, you might recall you heard from Jeremy Hill talking about inflation and how this has impacted our workforce. We heard about employment being at pre-pandemic levels. Employees now have a choice of where they want to work and what their work looks like and how and where they want to spend their time. So this morning, before our break, we spent a lot of time talking about what other things can we do to our workforce to be attractive to current employees and new employees. So this is just a recap of really what you've already heard. We've had a little over 7% increase in inflation in the Midwest, according to Jeremy Hill. It rose over 13%. So again, we know that our employees are feeling this inflation. The purchasing power is decreasing due to the higher housing, fuel, and utilities. And I took his quote, "We don't have a labor problem, we have a wage problem." And our wage problem comes from decades of not addressing compensation appropriately. So our employment is back to pre-pandemic levels. That quality labor force that we had prior to now has that power to choose different employers based on wages or maybe other things that they're offering. Labor force is also looking for the next move up financially. So, we were just talking over here, Target announced that in some of their stores they're paying up to $24 an hour. So the labor force is looking, they're paying attention to those things. In Sedgwick County, we're losing employees and candidates by not competing with those higher wages. This is some information that we previously showed, but what it really illustrates from 2020 into 2021 is that those voluntary separations, so employees choosing to go elsewhere, is increasing dramatically. Again, this is a slide that you have seen before. These are just some departments to illustrate that exodus of employees. Aging has seen a tremendous increase, facilities, emergency communications, and even our health department. In the midst of a pandemic, we're seeing a higher turnover rate there. So what have we done in the past year to combat some of this? And we actually kind of talked a little bit about it this morning. But we did what we consider, we talked about critical pay. So we looked at some positions and what are really critical to the organization, what are some hard to fill positions that we haven't had success in. And of that, we have spent in 2021 a little over $1.7 million in critical pay. So that means critical pay is in addition to their wages that they have right now. And overall, it's not enough because you can see that exodus is still going up. Just on a side note here, even with our premium pay, where we were paying payments of $10,000 out, we had employees leaving the day before, the week before the second $5,000 payment was going out the door. So something is attracting these employees to go elsewhere. Again, you've seen this before as well. What's part of our problem? Well, the applicants for the position. We are not getting the same amount of applicants for our positions. Some of these that I've highlighted before, Courthouse Police down 196% from pre-pandemic levels. Facilities, you might recall that's one that we even supported with a hiring bonus. Their candidate pool is simply down, and I think Tanya can attest that they are having trouble just even competing with the private sector. So again, we just don't have the candidates pool. So what can we do to make ourselves more attractive? We've looked at this before as well, and I just really want to highlight what you have done from 2021 into 2022. And you can see that the average salary went up almost a little over $2,000. And that was due significantly to you approving the reclasses for many, many of these positions. Our median salary is just under that. And the CPI from 2019 to 2022, again, seeing that high peak in 2022 of 7.48%, is taking it up just under 13%. All the while, our pay scale has only changed 1.25%. So in addition to increasing wages, moving that bottom line forward, we've also got to change our pay scale. We've got to keep moving this forward so that employees will recognize that we are trying to be competitive. These are our positions, our grades that are below $15 an hour. And again, just looking at those on a 2080 scale, that's a little over $31,000 a year. What we would like to do is take steps to address this problem. And again, by taking steps to address this problem, we're increasing that entry-level amount from $10.95 closer to that $15 mark. Some of the considerations that we have for you is in 2022 budget, we have a 2% contingency fund. We would like you to consider giving a 2% increase for employees hired before January 1 of 2022 to address some of the compression issues that we've had with reclassing employees. Now, we knew that compression was going to happen. We knew that, and we know that it's going to take a lot to address that, but this is a step in the right direction. And then the next thing that we want to do, again, is review the finalized information for our Fire and EMS step plan implementation. Again, the DA is involved with that, and they will be providing some information as well. But we hope to have some information back from our consultant in April that would show what it would cost to get us on a step plan, what those steps would be, and then how to address compression and longevity within that new scale. So we are real excited about that. I wish I had more information to provide to you today, but unfortunately it's a process that we have to go through. We're working with those departments and the consultant. this go around in this process, and it looks like we're really on the right steps. So again, for your consideration. And here really comes down to what we have proposed to you as the commission and what we would like you to consider. Again, understanding that inflation has really hit our employees. We are not getting the candidates and we're having the employees leave. So again, painting that picture of what more can we do. We are looking for feedback about providing a cost of living of 3.5% to all employees. We would like to move the pay scale 7%. This would help us attract those new employees and assist with some of those staffing shortages. So if we can get the candidates to the door, that is going to help us in the long run in all departments. So with moving the pay scale, we would also ask that we provide an 8% increase to employees. Now there's 3 little caveats here. The Fire, EMS, and DA, again, are currently working on a step plan, so we don't have information about what that would look like. The sheriff, as he has mentioned, is also working on a step plan, so we'd like to see what that looks like as well. And corrections and ComCare are awaiting funding updates and options. So we have a lot of things that are hanging in the balance right now that we don't have concrete information on, but we know that we're moving in the right direction. And again, this last bullet point is just pointing out that when you move the pay scale, you got to give your current employees more than what you would move the scale, because you don't want to start a new employee as your current employee. So that is our proposal. If you look on this next slide, and I know it's a little hard to see, but commissioners, you have a handout of this. And what we've just presented as our option is scenario 3. And I'm very lucky that Lorian and Lindsay are here. They can walk through some of the specific details if you have questions about each of these. But again, we would be presenting an option. It's an 11.5% total. Again, moving that pay scale 7%, employees receive an 8% adjustment, and then a 3.5% cost of living to somewhat address some of that inflation that we have seen. I'm just going to pause right there because I know we've talked about this, but now this is scenario 3 is what we've just provided.
Sheena, can you go back one page?
Yep.
And let's take just a second while the commissioners are looking at this. Let's hear out from the sheriff just a little bit about what his step plan process is. And then let's give some clarification on the corrections and ComCare waiting on funding updates. And maybe, Tim, you could talk to that just a little bit, at least the ComCare piece of that. But it's very similar with corrections, too. They're waiting on a similar state allocation. So, Sheriff, if you would, please.
And what was your question again, or what you'd like for me to discuss, Manager?
Just where you're at in the process of what your goal is of
for the salary survey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've taken a look at again the 4 other law enforcement agencies within Sedgwick County that their starting pay is higher, and some of their steps at the end are higher. Not all of them, but some of them are. We also are comparing ourselves, just like we did 3 or 4 years ago when we did the pay study, to the Wichita Police Department, Tulsa Police Department, Tulsa County Sheriff's Office, Omaha, which is the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and El Paso County, which is Colorado Springs. We do look at Johnson County. They're no comparison when it comes to everything else that we work with Lindsay on to look at all the other tax brackets and everything else that's involved in that. And Johnson County just isn't there, but they are by far the highest. And so we are in that process now. What they've seen so far with all the information that we've garnered back is it's about a 20% difference. With several departments. Now, Tulsa is paid less than us. They're the outlier compared to the others. And so we will take all that information and work with Sheena and her group on what that pay study looks like, and then what the county is trying to put together for the entire county, and then look at it in that lens. And so, but we're not done with our study yet. We're hoping to be done here, well, before May, so that we can work with Sheena, and then also by the time you guys really start delving into the budget in May timeframe. And any questions on that, I'd be happy to take.
As we've talked before, and Jones talked about it before with you, they are in the process of becoming a certified community behavioral health clinic. And when that designation is awarded to them, there's a change in the model, the way they get paid. Right now, the services that they deliver are reimbursed for on an hourly basis. For Medicaid patients, they will go to a daily rate, and it's an enhanced rate, and it would increase the amount of revenue. The projections are anywhere from $3 to $5 million a year in additional revenue. Theoretically, that's going to give them an opportunity to increase wages. One of the things that they've seen, that ComCare's seen, is that surrounding neighboring states, Oklahoma is one in particular, that was in the original CCBHC pilot, and so they've been doing this for a couple of years. They're paying their employees significantly more than we are. So we've lost a number of staff to Oklahoma. Folks that still live in Wichita, they drive to Oklahoma now because they can make anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a year more. And so we believe that the CCBHC designation and the additional revenue that comes with that would allow us to increase wages to a point where we can be more competitive in the community.
I just have a question on that. Do you know what the pay was prior to them going to that? Was there already a significant difference between what we did and what they did, or was there a noticeable difference after that happened that the pay went up so much?
It's almost all exclusively tied to that CCBHC designation.
Okay, thank you.
And then,
Tom, the only thing that I would add, if you don't mind, is since we're already on steps and ranges, we've worked out our compression issues. And so if whatever raises would come, it is just put into those steps. So we don't necessarily have near the compression issues that other folks have in the county. Now, granted, we had some folks that, we had to put them somewhere when we went to steps and ranges, and they're not necessarily happy about where they're at, but it's fixed now going forward so that we don't have just an increase in starting pay like we were getting years before that caused all this compression. So for us, the steps and ranges has really worked when it comes to compression issues. Just want to make sure that we understand that with our pay, the way it's formulated, we don't have that kind of issue anymore. And it was fixed because the county worked with us. You all gave us money for compression issues that was able to not totally fix it, but fix it to a point where it's manageable.
And then the only other thing I'll mention is corrections is waiting on a funding update. As the commission is aware, legislatively, we're watching the governor's budget, and they have, last I heard, that went from $8 million. Tanya, is it $14 million now, or what is in the governor's budget?
Well, I received an update from Rusty yesterday saying that the subcommittees of the House and Senate funding committees endorsed the governor's recommendation to add $2.6 million in fiscal year 22 and $8.4 million in fiscal year 23. And so they still need to go through the full Senate Ways and Means Committee tomorrow, and then they will also go through the House Appropriations Committee as well. So
our platform asked for $14 million.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So just that's the backscape on, those are the unknowns out there as we continue the discussion on what the commission's will is as we move forward for a 2023 budget.
And we know this is a big ask for the commission to consider. Again, we have many things that we're trying to achieve in the outer years as well. And we know that taking significant steps in the first few years will help us achieve some of those goals. Okay. So scenario 3 that we just talked through, it's really focusing on 2023. So asking, again, for that larger increase and then looking at 2024 through 2027 with a pay pool that is regularly projected. For 2023, we have a 5%. So it would take some adjusting than what we've budgeted for or forecasted for right now. But again, a pretty dramatic step, a pretty dramatic ask for employees.
Test. Can you go back, just a quick question about the, go backwards in slides to the, sorry, I had it in front of me. Oh, is the slide, positions below $15 an hour? Just, it's a big chart, there you go. How many, so those are all the grades that are below 15? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, correct? How many employees are in that group?
Couple hundred, yeah. Yeah, a couple hundred. We can get you that exact number.
That's okay.
I just didn't bring it with me. We talked about it last time, but I don't have that with me.
That's all right. So
yeah.
That's a big word, significantly less.
It is, because when we did the reclassifications, we moved a lot of positions to higher grades, and previously there were a lot of the corrections workers and the case manager twos were in that grade 120, which consists of quite a few positions, and those are now moved up to 124 and 126s.
Okay. So we're making improvement.
Yes.
To quote Bethany, significant
Yeah.
towards that goal.
Yeah.
So is there a discussion where we just said, like others, hey, $15 is the minimum?
We would like to have 15 as the minimum, but we can't get there in one budget year.
Okay.
We'd like to get there in a couple budget years, but you can see we're trying to move from 1095 to 15, and that's pretty significant.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Because again,
30%.
we're moving all the scales.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then back to your last slide. And Chairman, sorry, are you all right with me asking? Okay. So the difference, so we all hear the number 7.5%. Matter of fact, I ran into Jeremy Hill last night, and he apologized to say, well, remember the speech I gave you 2 weeks ago? It's all out the window. What part of it, I don't know, because Jeremy can talk. But anyway, but it's valuable stuff that he had provided, and he went into the monetary system and all kinds of stuff that he talks. Okay, so what's the difference between scenario 2 and scenario 4 that still shows an 8% increase?
It's the outer years. In 2024, we're carrying that at a 10% versus a 4%.
Okay. So scenario 1 and 3 require a mill levy increase this year and in the out years,
Yes.
as presented.
Lindsay?
Can I speak to that real quick? We put
Absolutely.
that up there to show what if you wanted to increase revenues to offset that, what it would be. But we also show the deficit because an alternative would be obviously to discuss reductions or some combination of the two. So we were just trying to capture the data for you so you could look at it in two different ways.
Okay, and then my last question, and I'll let others. So we as a commission haven't looked at decision packages yet. So do we believe in the management that decision packages are also going to include, I need more people, operation?
Lorian might be best to answer
well,
that.
and I think there's a difference between capital costs, one-time capital improvements versus ongoing increases of personnel or operating expenses, whatever those would be, IT increase on contracts, whatever. So it's kind of hard for me to weigh in without trying to balance it out with not knowing what the decision packages are going to be in front of us, or me at least. So that's just my comments. Thank you.
Let me ask a couple questions. Are you advocating for scenario 3, or is that the recommendation? What on this slide is what you're trying to get across to us?
Scenario 3 talks about 2023 specifically, and knowing that it's hard to gauge what's going to happen in 2024, 25, and 26, and throughout the outer years. 21 threw us a curveball. We didn't know that inflation was going to hit us the way that it did. And so in talking with the manager and finance, we talked about just taking 1 year at a time. What is it going to look like in 2023? And then keeping the same pay pools in 2024 through on, and look each year how we can address that. So that's why we're presenting 3.
Okay, so if I took a look at 3, it's saying that to get there, we still need a mill levy increase of 0.686. But we're going to have a deficit on top of that, even with the...
Lindsay's going to answer that right behind you.
So, Chairman, it's actually, the deficit is just what it is if we don't do anything to correct. It is just what the deficit would be without a mill levy increase. But then what we do is we take the amount of that deficit and we compute what the mill levy would be, what would be needed to offset that. So basically, if you're looking at, for example, scenario 3 for the general fund, for 2023, it shows a baseline surplus or deficit of 3.9 million. And so in order to offset that 3.9 million, we would need 0.686 additional mills worth of revenue to offset that deficit, and so on and so forth throughout those years.
And in 2024, even though we drop down to 4%, we're going to run a deficit of $7 million?
Yes, because all of this compounds, and so 1% is 1.1 million. So when you're doing that in year 1, obviously that cost carries forward and then grows by the next pay pool. So yes, it does successively get quite large.
So just to be clear, without any decision packages, without any additional hires, without any purchases, without anything else, just this, you're looking at 0.686 if we use this next year, and 1.186 the next year, and 0.0804, and each year you're seeing an increase every single year.
Yes,
with no other increases.
Right. And actually, I will give you even worse news. This is just the general fund. If you look at the second page of your handout, it includes our other property tax supported funds that are that include personnel. And so actually, you would want to add both of those figures together. And then you can see on the rest of the pages how that looks for our other grant funds. Obviously, there could be some opportunity for us to step in and supplement some of those grant funds if they're not enough to accommodate that. We have not tried to forecast what that would be. So this definitely would require some additional discussion.
Well, you're just full of good news today.
I always am. It's my job.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. Just I know it's probably assumed by everybody in this room, but let's be clear. Is this assuming that the assessed value growth has been captured or has not been captured?
Has been captured.
Has been captured.
At 29.359 mils.
Okay. And do we know, we should know by now, the approximate growth in the property tax funds that's funding this to make it this rosy? What's that growth in property tax funds?
So this is based on what you all saw at your retreat or workshop, a week or two ago. So the long sheet from that day. And so that included 3.25% growth for next year. However, since then, Mark presented the data to you last week at your commission meeting about the growth in taxes. And so we bumped that up a bit to 4%. So it does improve that a little bit. But it still is only 4% growth.
I'm going to ask a question. You're not going to like it, Lindsay.
Okay. Okay.
Let's go back a few years. We had for a while there Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, or you want to call it priority-based budgeting discussion about what things are non-discretionary, we're statutorily required to do them, or they are obligations we must, for example, 1.5 mils to WSU is not discretionary unless you really want to go there. I don't think anybody wants to have that conversation that I'm aware of, but there are things in the county that are really non-discretionary. There's also things that are funded outside of our property tax budget. In other words, some of this, if, for example, let's say you are in a grant-funded service of Sedgwick County. I'd assume that, I guess I really don't know, are we able to adjust those salaries based on their grant-funded? They're not really hit the property tax dollars, but we make discretionary decisions on what to pay those folks out of those grant funds.
Some allow us to do that, some don't. It'll truly be a case-by-case basis across each department about whether we'll be able to get that additional funding or not. But that's why we haven't done that analysis to see what of those will not be covered by this. So we would need to do that and see if there would be any property tax support that we would need to throw that way, or just move the portions of those positions into the general fund.
I'll just speak for myself here. I think, based on the high growth in assessed value, I personally would rather not capture all that. I would like to see us have a different discussion this year about not doing that. But I also see that this is actually asking us to do not just capture that, but actually increase, if you will, a property tax dependency to fund this budget. It begs the question, what things in our budget are truly discretionary and which things are not. I don't have a good answer to that question. I could go back to a discussion we had years ago, but I think it would be a prudent discussion this year to find out what things are we doing that are discretionary, which things are not discretionary. We might need to lean up this budget in some way. Maybe not do some things we've been doing in the past. Maybe there's areas of the budget we can shift that fiscal support from one part of our budget to another part that needs it more. I don't know, but to me, I'm uncomfortable with essentially giving a thumbs up to an increase in mill levy, knowing that there's a 7% or 7.5% increase in residential assessed value on 88% of the properties. I just can't get behind that right now. So it's going to be a tough budget year. We haven't even talked about the asks yet that Commissioner Meitzner discussed a minute ago.
Well, and actually, Lorian can tell you that real quick. We did do the business needs assessments. So, Lorian, do you want to give the other good news?
Sure. Well, departments are working right now on their budget submissions. They have until March 21st. But earlier in January, we did business needs assessments. We had about 80 of them submitted. It was about 26 million in requests. Most of those probably will translate into a decision package. There are a lot of requests for personnel, vehicles, equipment, and there are some things that we have to do, like increasing utility costs or medical contracts. So you will see a lot of asks that will come out of decision packages that are not factored in. The only thing that would be factored into the forecast you saw is rising utility costs, or we forecast for some of those kind of costs of doing business that we know are coming, but otherwise they won't be included.
Well, I guess to summarize what I had just heard is that we're going to take a full 7% of the increase in property tax value, and on top of that, we're going to, just to get this, not including any decision packages, 0.686 mils.
We would either need to do that or make offsetting reductions, or some combination of the two.
Well, you have not made my day.
I know. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, please. Thank you. Say, on the long sheet that maybe you condensed in less than long sheet now, tell me again, how come under the mill levy rates, to continue with Commissioner Howe's discussion, ComCare and EMS show a zero on the out years?
Right.
Is that from what Tim was talking about?
We consolidated those into the general fund in the 2022 budget. And so you'll see that there's a drawdown of fund balance next year because we're going to move that cash over into those funds. It'll be restricted. It can only be used for those purposes. But there will no longer be a mill levy rate assigned to those specific funds.
So that's why the general fund rate went from 22 to 24.
Exactly.
And you threw noxious weeds up there too.
Yep.
That's important. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
A real quick question that I have would be, what would be, sounds like there's two options, cut services or raise taxes. So what would be the whole ramifications of cut services, and how do we determine that? So if we were going to keep everything the same and cut services to not have to increase taxes, how do we plan to communicate that to our community members so that we clearly understand the ramifications of this budget year? Can you help me with that?
Sure. So we've taken a few different approaches over the years, and so it would just simply require direction from the commission. What we did when we were, and I think Lorian spoke to this in her forecast presentation, so when we were looking at becoming insolvent, when we were coming out of the Great Recession, we took two approaches in 2 successive years. The first year, we did across-the-board cuts. If you were public safety, you got a 3.3% cut. If you were non-public safety, you got a 6.6% cut, and that was all there was to it. That still didn't get us where we needed to be, and so the second year, we did what was called a prioritization inventory, and we went through and looked at by first and by last programs and did strategic reductions that way. So we could take either of those approaches. There's also a kind of a startup philosophy right now, returning to some work that was done 40 or 50 years ago called zero-based budgeting, where essentially nobody gets any money right off the bat. You have to come in and ask for all of your different programs and get funded that way. We're not really set up to do that. I'm not sure we would be in a position to do that this quickly this year, but that would be something we could look forward to future years if that was an approach the commission wants to take. But we would either do an across-the-board cut, or we would do, as Commissioner Howell was referencing, looking at what's discretionary and what's not. And is the way we do it required, or is the way we do it discretionary, even if the service is mandated? And we could prioritize based on that.
So would the other option be potentially putting something on the ballot to see if the community wanted to fund a sales tax initiative around funding some of these services? Would that be something that, I mean, that way it's in the community's hands. I mean, I guess that doesn't really help us at our budget decision in August. But neither of these options are great.
No, they're not.
I wonder how we can. My first and foremost concern is the communication to the public and helping people understand what we're really in right now, and how do we plan to do that. So I would really look to our communications staff around, what we're doing, because this is a real predicament, and it's very unfortunate because our employees really run this organization, and we can't do this service without them. But the burden on our taxpayers, especially with increased property values, I don't know if y'all have heard it, but I've heard it. It's not something conversations that I like to have. There's not an easy conversation to have. Seems like with inflation costs, everything is going up. I went to the grocery store the other day. It's like insane. So, man, this is a fun conversation.
I do think it's really important. Thank you for sending the email yesterday about price of government. And over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of things increase, but we've seen what we get from the state decrease significantly. Up to, I think, 12% of state funding we no longer receive, and we've kept the price of government at the county level. There's been no change in the 10 years before now. So I do think it's important to hit on that topic because we have to be able to make up some of that lost revenue somewhere. And I agree that we don't have county services without the staff to run them. So I think how we change increasing our staff is going to be, that's my biggest concern going forward, is just making sure that we have the staff here to run our services in the first place. So I think going with scenario 3, I mean, with that 11.5%, I know that's a lot to ask, and I know there is going to be an increase or a service cut. Something has to give, but I do think it's really important that we are prioritizing our staff members here. So that's kind of where we're at. But I do think it's an important thing to realize that we really have taken a lot of cuts from the state, and unfortunately we have to make up that money somewhere.
If you look at the bottom of what I sent you last night, there is, at the very bottom, talks about our property tax reliance over since the Great Recession, and we were at 51% back in 2008. We are now to the point where 57% of our property tax supported funds rely on property tax support, direct property tax support, just because everything else has gone down. We're just not getting what we used to.
Well, we may have needed to start with this slide instead of end with it, because it kind of drives all the decisions that we had up to this point. How many of those can we afford now? We agreed that a lot of them are kind of critical, but just the pay raise may be more than we can bite off, and then try and pick up all these other things, maybe even more difficult.
Well, Chairman, one other comment. When I was in the state legislature, we had a similar conversation about state employees, and for a number of years they were understaffed for year after year after year, and finally they reset the FTEs. I mean, they were managing at lesser FTEs than they wanted. We can argue we want more FTEs in certain places in the county, but after a number of years of being lower, maybe it's time to face the music and just say, again, I guess these numbers are based on a full FTE count in every department. They're not.
No, this is based on the financial forecast. This is what's really happening in the organization.
So if we were to actually find employees to fill those positions, it would be way worse than this.
What, maybe, I think, though, with the amount of overtime that's being worked for at least quite a while, there would be some good offset.
And I do agree, overtime is a Band-Aid to having, full-time employees in those positions. And there, it's not an either or. When you don't have employees, you have to pay overtime. It's not necessarily like we're not paying for those positions one way or the other. We are. But I guess I'm just saying, if we're getting by with less employees for numbers of years, we might need to reset our FTE desires for certain organizations. It's just part of reality. I know, the sheriff, you're looking at efficiencies in the jail because you're kind of facing that reality, and doing some virtual stuff in the jail versus what you'd rather have a person there, but you can't get them, so you find other ways to get there. So that if we see after a number of years of understaffed departments, it may be it might be reasonable for us to reset those FTE goals for those organizations. Thanks.
Well, and I would say to bear in mind that we still have all of the ARPA discussions that are going to come up. And so to the extent some of the things in this forecast, the one-time things or CIP or some of that might be able to be picked up, that could be an opportunity to make this a little less traumatic.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Okay, and follow up from what Chairman said. So the presentation we had, or the packet there, so all of those are incorporated into scenario 3?
No.
None of them?
Just the compensation fee, just the base
The right answer is all of them.
Well, I'm sorry to give you the wrong answer, but it is the answer.
Wrong answer. Can I, and then one kind of detailed question, maybe to Tim and Tanya. When we had our presentation at the en banc about shortages, if you recall that big graph that showed up, needs and wants, remember that one kind of? The biggest needs were in the master's degree. They were sizable, way more than the others. Master's degree for children and adults, and then case manager, a bachelor's degree. So my question is to maybe us, are we still advocating to try to take those master's and bachelor's degrees down so we can just get these caseworkers undegreed or degree in training, whatever the word is, and should we be advocating in Topeka for that allowance?
It's a
Catching you
complicated,
off-
well,
catching you
no,
off
it's a
guard.
complicated answer. So one of the issues is that most of the payers pay based on the licensure of the person delivering the service. And so if we reduce and the other thing, remember that almost all the services that ComCare delivers are paid for by some other payer, not by the county. And so we're dependent upon those payers to pay based on the licensure of the person delivering the service or the qualification of the person delivering the service. So if we were to deliver, in many instances, the payer's not going to allow us to use a lesser skilled person to deliver that service. If they were, they wouldn't pay as much. And so it may not benefit us in the long run financially if we were to choose to pursue something like that.
Okay.
Probably
So
not the answer you were looking for.
No,
either.
but so it's not really in our hands. It's not our decision. It's still those kind of adjustments, qualifications are under the
Much
state,
of it's going to
state
depend
law.
on what the payer
And the
dictates
payroll.
to us. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for kind of letting me go in the weeds on that.
She, no one else you have. Any other good news?
That's where I'm going to end things, but I just want to acknowledge that we understand this is your first time looking at this and the first time formally talking about a lot of these programs. So we're going to go back now that we've had direction from the board. We'll put numbers together and impact within the organization, and we'll have other meetings where I think we'll have further discussion of what priorities will be and if we can incorporate all of the desires of the commission. So again, just first blush at this today, and we have a lot to go forward.
Commissioner Meitzner?
And Sheena, I want to thank you. It's timely that you sent out an email that there's a new course in stress management.
Oh.
Offer. I'd like to sign up, please.
It's right after this meeting,
Okay.
right? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the hard work that everybody went through to get this together today. I guess you took a lot of comments earlier, but some of those may not be still accurate based on this last slide. So I want you to understand that we were making decisions without this piece of information as we were telling you things that we would support. Because at this point, there's some of those I probably wouldn't support based on what you're showing me here. But anyway, I want to go down the line. Commissioner Cruz, do you have any final comments?
I just want to be able to communicate this in a proper way because this is a tough decision to make. So help with our communication staff, I think, is critical. So I appreciate the work today.
I think I've said all my comments throughout, but I appreciate everything that went into all of this. I know I can't imagine how much work it takes to put all this together. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I go back to one comment I made a little bit ago. I think priority-based budgeting needs to take a greater role in this process. It is a slippery slope of government to find more and more things to do. But I'll argue, my years of being a county commissioner, we have expanded the role of government here in Sedgwick County. I've said before, we need to have a list of guardrails to know what exactly is our mission in Sedgwick County government. Some things are not our problem. Some things should be handled in the private sector. Some things we would like to help, but we probably should not help because it's someone else. It's not, maybe in a different government's responsibility, for example. So at the end of the day, we're a growing government, and you can see it in all the numbers. And the private sector is trying to find ways to do more with less. They have to pay their employees more, but they expect more out of those employees as well. And I think those have to go hand in hand. I think we want to pay our employees what they deserve, but we also need to expect that they essentially have a leaner department perhaps and provide more services for less number of employees in those positions, for example. I don't know how to solve this problem. It's clearly a challenge. Some of this it seems impossible when you look at the way we looked at this today. It seems impossible to to not just simply raise taxes, but we have a responsibility and an obligation to find ways to hold government level with the economy. And I think this is going to be a challenging year, but every year I've been here, it's been challenging, without exception. And the state has the same challenges. Other cities have the same challenges. It's important that we find ways to solve that problem. One of the things I talked about priority-based budgeting, as I think it needs to take a greater role. And that means we have to know what our mission in Sedgwick County is, what things are discretionary, which things aren't. And then I think, second of all, I think there's things we're doing in the county that maybe belongs in the private sector entirely. Maybe we should subsidize or create the service in the private sector, that we encourage the private sector to participate as a public-private partnership, or where the services are being provided, but we're not the carrier of the service. We simply are working with the private sector to move those ideas forward. So, incentivizing or asking the private sector to involve themselves in some of these things maybe is part of the solution here. But part of me just says we can't bury our head in the sand and act like this is not upon us to find a way to make this all these priorities, all these responsibilities have to work together in some way without raising the cost of government to the people we serve. We've got to find a way to balance that back out again. So as hard as this is going to be, I'm not likely to support a tax increase. I should say a mill levy increase. I think we need to find a way to lean things up in other ways. And so I do want to pay our employees what they deserve, but I don't know that it's going to be simply just raising taxes to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Sheena, thank you and your staff for all the work. Stephanie, or Bethany. And Anna. Thank you. And thank you, Lindsay, for you and all your people. Thank you. And I really want to appreciate the other electeds and the departments they run, because that's really valuable information. I know the ultimate decision leans with the majority of this commission, but for me personally, your input is very valuable, and the discussions we have are very valuable for my feedback and my understanding. So I just want to thank you all for this and the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sheena and your staff, we appreciate it. Lindsay, all your folks that brought this together, all the other employees. Sedgwick County is a service-based organization, and we can't do the job without our employees. They're our most valuable asset. So we have to make sure that we do what's necessary in order to be able to keep and hire new folks that can base the services and support the entire community. I think from what I've seen here today, I doubt if any of the other governments are going to be any different as they're sitting down, putting their budgets together for the coming year. So I guess the public is going to get hit more than just one time as we're looking forward. If every government is facing the same challenges as we are, it's going to impact their bottom line, and every day, everything that you've seen here, the public is seeing when they go to the grocery store, when they fill up the gas tank and so forth, and now they're going to see it when they start paying their property tax for all these governments. So we're going to have to take a real hard look at how we move forward in this. Again, some of the things that you proposed at the beginning that sounded like a good idea may not be feasible. I just want to make sure. The other thing is that I did hear a comment about going out to the public, seeing if they'd support some kind of property or sales tax increase or some other way of funding this. I sincerely doubt that the public would ever vote for anything like that, so I don't know that that would be something that we ought to hang our hat on as we move forward to find our way out of this. So again, thanks for everybody for coming today. It's going to be a long time between now and August 24th, it appears. Thanks. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Chairman, if I could have one more minute, just wanted to provide you a quick update on another project we're working on with IT and Mike Elpers and his staff. some time back, we purchased some technology called Qualtrics to assist us with our exit surveys and also our engagement surveys with employees. And we are getting very close to wrapping that up and being able to implement that. So you will be seeing some information coming out in regards to our new platform. It's called Qualtrics. And again, just another way that we can engage employees and get information from them very, very quickly. Thank you.
Any employees or anyone have anything to add today? All right. Have a good afternoon. Thank you all.